basically was getting interviewed at the end of the game, and so many people retweeted it, and not even retweeted, but just tweeted that he said it. He was like, Karras is cold. And
Yep.
and I thought that would have like had Kyrie, out in the world, basically just elevating Karras' platform. I thought that would have had, Kevin, elevating Karras' platform. And it just like I saw it, and I'm not apt to criticize Kevin Durant as much as I am apt to criticize Kyrie Irving, and there's a reason for that. I really believe that Kevin Durant is here to win games. So me and Kevin Durant's goals and wishes for the team are the same. So I don't necessarily criticize him, but Kyrie Irving, I feel like Kyrie Irving can't publicly, cheer the boys on, and he's done it in the past. That was his normal before. Am I right, Sam? Like he's been injured and cheering on the team like via Twitter and Instagram. Am I right?
Yeah, no, and what I wonder, actually, this is the only like kind of funny thing I could think of, is I wonder if he's just being quiet right now because he called on the NBA to not even have a seat at the bubble.
That's exactly it. That's exactly where I was leading. He can't, like, he's so more interested about basically disqualifying this whole thing. He's basically stood on that ground now that even during playoff games, he's put up pictures of like the Breonna Taylor thing. Like, your opportunity to have the spotlight is over. Let these kids, let these guys who are, they may not be really fighting for like Brooklyn's pride or for the jersey. I mean, I want to romantically believe those things, but I know that's not the way these guys think. These guys are fighting for their basketball futures. Everybody wants to get 10 years. The first goal is to get 5 years, to get that first after your rookie contract. Then after you get that, you want to be able to get these playoffs and all-star game bonuses. And, these guys have real hunger because they don't have $200 million sitting in the bank account like Kyrie does. And to not be in fraternity with them and outwardly show love for your teammates, it was really, really disappointing, man. It's another one of those things that took away from how great it was to just be winning. You know what I mean? I did not expect the Nets to play like that, and for them to be playing for nothing against Portland, like it didn't change anything about their future if they won that game. For them to and it meant everything to Portland to win that game. Yep. The ball bounces just a little bit different, and they're out of the playoffs. They're in the playoffs now, and they had to win that game to do so, and to see Karras put on that performance, and for it to not just bring joy to Nets fandom. It's so disappointing, and a part of it is what you're talking about is this thing where the two of them aren't saying anything. I mean, what else have you noticed?
I mean, there's that. I think I find the Nets. I find the Nets social media bubble of new fans or even old fans who now are just so happy that they have stars or whatever. I think the notion that you can't be critical of Kyrie without being like some type of, or KD without being some type of Nets hater is crazy. And I think this also kind of alludes to what you were getting at, which was about the whole LeVert, all these trade rumors that have already started because he's playing well, and what I think is the funniest thing about it all is like, look, we're going to get to this in the second part of the podcast, but I mean, the Nets are playing a juggernaut defensive team who have a million different guys they can throw at LeVert, and like, I wouldn't be surprised if LeVert had a really difficult series, and his stats are not going to be the same as what they were in the regular season. And what's funny about this is that that's just going to be used the same way, only with different reasoning for why they should trade him now, because they're gonna be like, oh look, see, he really can't be a third banana, even though what he's gonna about to have to do against Toronto is gonna be nothing that he'll ever have to do again.
thou shalt not covet shows the wisdom of Torah scripture, because we have Karis LeVert.
Yep.
And Karis LeVert is playing brilliantly, right? Putting up 50 games against top defenses like the Celtics. Like I said, the Portland game, we didn't need it, they needed it, and we fought them to the end. And now I'm prepping for the show, and I'm kind of just going through comment sections of Nets Daily and Twitter, and I'm looking at this article of passing torches. Kyrie Irving calls Karis LeVert to offer encouragement. Okay, cool. Par for the course, puff piece, bloggy type of article. The first comment in this, just to show you like how like piss poor the Nets fan base and how covetous we are. LeVert will never have higher trade value than this.
Of course.
How ruthless is that from a fan base? And what he's asking for is to basically trade Dinwiddie and Karis for Bradley Beal or Devin Booker. The insanity of this thinking is beyond the problem of it. Like, you are the worst defensive team in the NBA, and you will never win a championship. I don't care how great of a scorer Bradley Beal is. Bradley Beal and Karis LeVert pretty much are a wash, especially when you already have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. When Kyrie played last year, the Nets were top 3 in offense in the NBA. And they had never played together before, and Kyrie only played 20 games. The problem was when Kyrie touched the floor, the defense went to shit. And for us to be watching the Nets play hard-boiled defense, they're out there against top-scoring teams playing incredible defense. The game against the Clippers, I was shocked at what the Clippers needed to do. And they weren't with their full complement of the players, and of course, neither were the Nets.
Yep.
But the joy I felt after watching that game and saying to myself, oh my God, we have the pieces right here that we need. And these are the real Nets. Jarrett Allen, Joe Harris, Rodions Caruth. That's a core of your team. That's what gives your team character, culture, and a spine. And these Net fans are already calling to wrap them in the ball to send them for a guy who, when he leads his team, they can't make the playoffs. Do you understand how stupid that whole thing is? Like the even the conceptual thinking. Here is Karis leading us to the playoffs in real life with maybe one of the shittiest rosters I've ever seen. G Leaguers and a bunch of 6'3" combo guards. And Karis LeVert has basically put them on his back and is getting nearly 30 and 6 assists. And we're talking about trading him? What is wrong with our fan base, Sam? What?
I'm totally with you. I mean, I want to see LeVert be the third guy for them. I think there's been a lot of talk about whether he can actually be like play with the other two guys. I think he absolutely can. I personally think he can definitely play with those two guys more than Dinwiddie can. But I also do agree. I think there is something wrong with the fan base at this point, that it's constantly moving on to the next thing. And look, like, I happen to be a huge Bradley Beal fan. I think he's awesome. I mean, like, Booker's not getting traded, but like, Beal I think is fantastic. And do I think Beal is better than LeVert? Yeah, but I also think the idea of trading LeVert and Dinwiddie for Beal at this point is not something I'm really that interested in. I'm more interested in filling in gaps of places that are needed. If you told me I was getting a great, as we've talked about, like a good 4 for Dinwiddie or something like that, maybe that's something I would consider. But like I think this obsession with moving on to the next one is something that Nets fans, I think they've been in this mold now for about 10 years or so. I think if you go to the 2010 summer and then you fast forward to almost getting Melo, the D-Will trade coming out of nowhere, almost getting Dwight Howard, all this stuff that's constantly been in the next one.
Yep.
And now they even have 2 guys. They managed to shock the world literally, 13 months ago. And it's still a on to the next one mentality.
But let's talk about sheer results. Hold on, like wishing for a player, looking at a player on another team be dominant without looking at their results. Excuse me. Bradley Beal and John Wall at full health basically was the Brooklyn Nets. I'm talking about being a 7th seed, 6th seed type of team. Never really contending. But when the 2 were healthy, they barely looked like they could knock over any other team. And they had better talent surrounding them than the Nets, with Nene and those guys. You mean to tell me when you already have a player like Kyrie Irving that is, a mercurial, point guard that will score more than assists, but he can. Kyrie can get his assist, and a lot of his assists seem very direct and not necessarily creating offense or throwing guys open, as I like to say. Karras tends to do that with Jarrett, but Kyrie is a scorer, right? Is that the right way to right. Label Kyrie? Then you have
more than he is distributor. So yeah,
right. So he's a scoring point guard. Then you already have Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is what? The greatest scorer in our generation.
Yep.
Right? You cannot, the most unstoppable point producer in NBA history, probably. You mean to tell me that the brightest idea and the thing that Nets fan could create this climate of disrespect for the player that's playing his heart out for them is Karis LeVert? Is Bradley Beal? That's the best idea? Do you realize what it takes to make Kyrie Irving successful? To make Kyrie Irving successful, behind him has to be Kevin Love, Tristan Thompson, LeBron James. If you don't have those type of defensive players like J.R. Smith, right? Wing shooters like Kyle Korver. Remember what was on that Cavs team along with LeBron in order for them to topple a Western Conference champion. So you mean to tell me that with Kyrie Irving and with Kevin Durant as our power forward, the defense that's going to win us championships is going to be with Bradley Beal on the court? You're fools.
Yeah, no, look, by the way, I heard this on I forgot who I was listening to, but someone said this and I thought it was a good point. I think there is something to, like, if you want to start to conserve Kyrie a little bit, because it's clear that, his body is obviously, look, he's still young, but his body is what
he'll never play 70 games ever in his career.
Right, which I've agreed with you now since we've started this pod. I think that's totally true. I think there is something to making Kyrie more of a set shooter and having guys around him, like as you were kind of alluding to, like a Dinwiddie or LeVert who can slash and